Welcome to Faithfully Podcast, at the intersection of race, culture, and Christianity. I'm your host, Nicola Menzi, along with co-hosts Keisha Boston and Vincent Finaro. Joining us on this episode of Faithfully Podcast is Chad Horton, co-owner of Rapzilla.com and director of marketing at Syntax Creative, and also Justin Sarachik, who writes for Rapzilla.com and for Contemporary Christian Music Magazine. Justin is also the frontman for progressive rock band Process of Fusion. Welcome to Faithfully Podcast, guys.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Definitely. Cool. So I'm kind of curious, Chad, about your credit as co-owner of Rapzilla.com. Like, what does that actually mean?
It means I own 50% of Rapzilla.com with Philip Rude, who is the founder.
Okay. And so do you do anything, though, creatively with the company?
I am extremely uncreative. No. I do creative things in business and strategy and marketing. I write very rarely, but my creative and contribution is on the business and marketing side.
Okay, and I guess we should probably note for anyone who might not know, what exactly is Rapzilla.com?
It is the number one Christian hip-hop website online.
Okay, and you got receipts for that, right? I don't have to, fact check you?
I do. You can check all of the Alexas or any reporting websites that you want.
I actually wrote an article about it, that it is the number one Christian hip-hop website.
Oh, was that on Christian Post?
No, we made an announcement on the Rapzilla in that article that came out listing us as such.
Oh, right. Yeah. I forget what that publication was called.
So do you guys have a lot of competitors, though?
Actually, we have now more than ever, actually. So, yeah, I mean, we don't have, right now we don't have any close competitors, but there are a lot of websites out there now, which is cool. I mean, I'm glad that there's a bunch of other people that are pushing, this subgenre of Christian hip-hop and pushing the gospel through hip-hop. That's a good thing.
And does Rapzilla.com, though, only focus on Christian artists? Or can anyone, with quote-unquote good music get coverage?
No, it's just Christians doing hip-hop. I mean, we cross over here and there. Excuse me. That could be, someone that is featuring or known to be featured on Christian rapper stuff. Or, we may cover news or culture that's, related in a very close way to Christian hip-hop or, the Christian urban culture.
Okay, and Justin, I described Process of Fusion as a rock band, but I know you guys integrate rap into it, so maybe that connects a bit with how you got connected with Rapzilla, or I guess just talk about that a little bit.
Actually, my band had nothing to do with Rapzilla, but I will say that as somebody who both raps and rocks at various points of my life, Rapzilla actually is really cool because most of my experience doing and covering Christian music in journalism has been away from rap. I've done a lot of the rock, a lot of CCM, and I am a hip-hop fan, and I never really was able to, I guess, really hone in and focus on any particular Christian hip-hop. So the opportunity came when I was looking for freelance opportunities in different places to write for, and that's when I emailed Chad, who I had met previously and spoken to before, and I sort of pitched my services as a writer, and from there this nice relationship, I guess. I do drive Chad crazy. I ask him about 1 million questions a day. But I would hope that the work that I put out compensates for the dumb questions I'm constantly asking.
So how many guys do you have on staff? And is it actually literally guys, or do you have any women on staff?
We have one woman, not necessarily on staff, but she definitely contributes. Her name's Wande, and she contributes a video recap, which she does everything for. She's amazing. She of course does her hair and makeup, which I'm sure is a lot of work, and then she also does the video. She shoots it, she edits it, then she overlays, text or graphics on it, and she writes her own script for it. So she kills it on that. And then as far as the writing goes, it's all males. So we have Steven Solis, who's the Wizard of Oz of Christian hip hop. He takes care of the submissions, and he can uncover anything that's happening in some mysterious way. And then Philip Rude, he's the founder, myself, Justin, and then David Daniels is full-time writer as well.
Okay, so that's like...
We have some contributors here and there.
Okay. So question, where is Rapzilla? Because, I have this marketing degree that I've never really used, and a bunch of ideas, and I'm trying to, I've already planned my life maybe working with Rapzilla, but I just want to know exactly, where Rapzilla is. Where's the office and everything located?
We're everywhere.
Oh.
We are based on the interwebs. Phil and I actually met online when he was 15 and he lived in Belgium. And we were both, on a computer in different parts of the world. So no one is located in the same office. And we probably never will be unless, we get really big and can afford to move everyone to the same place. But it probably would have to be San Diego because I live in the greatest city on the planet. So I don't think I'll be going anywhere.
Okay, that's flexible. So if we send the email, let's say off the website, to contact us, who would you guys answer it?
Depends on what you say.
Okay.
But most likely, yes. If you're trying to contribute, we would most likely answer that.
Okay. I'll just probably email a life story later on to you guys.
Okay, I'll be looking for that.
Okay, so question: How is the church receptive of Rapzilla? Is the church really like, hey, this is a good site to go to, or is it just kind of like Christian rap heads going to it?
I don't have any kind of hard research data on that, but I've been around Christian hip hop and in the church for 16 years now, and that's both not as a Christian and as a Christian. So I have different perspectives on that too. So when I first started, I was doing concerts and I was doing booking for artists, and this was before MySpace or anything that's preceded that. And this was before I was a Christian, but I was doing booking for Christian artists. And so a lot of times we would reach out and they would not be receptive to it. But you fast forward, to maybe, I don't know, maybe five years ago. It seems like maybe 5 to 7 years ago that it doesn't seem like anyone necessarily has objections to it. There are some super outspoken ones that should probably spend their time on things that are beneficial besides being so outspoken about hip hop or Christian hip hop. But there's still some of those out there. But I think overall the temperature and seeing how things have changed over the last 16 years, I think that it's ultimately just accepted as a majority, blanket statement.
Cool stuff. I work in radio, and so and my station is a gospel station, but the listening audience is pretty much like 35 and up. And sometimes the comments I get on anything that seems a little too hip-hop-ish, even though they're talking about the Lord, and conversations that I've even had with my mother. I think I had the truth in the car, and she was like, "What is this? Why would you play hip-hop when I'm in the car?" I was like, "Are you serious? This is the truth. Like, what are you talking about?" So, I'm always interested in making sure, and always just wanting to see Christian rap to get its just due. And unfortunately, I feel like in radio, sometimes in the church, people don't know how to handle it. They go too far, or they don't do enough, and they just don't really know how to handle it yet. But it's growing and it's getting better.
Yeah, and I've seen. I think it's different on radio, because on radio it's like, this is who we are, this is what we play, this is our identity, and so I don't think that it should be expected to be receptive, for them to be receptive of it there, because they've kind of already said this is what we want and who we are. But when you talk about the church, and you're talking about different demographics from little kids to old people, and so that's where it's different, and that's where I think it should be accepted. And I think ultimately it is accepted, but radio is a whole different beast in itself. So yeah, but it is interesting though, because early on what I noticed was it seemed like the white churches were more receptive to hip hop than the black churches, which was confusing, because I'm like, this is part of the black culture, and this is, coming from the streets, of the urban culture. So like, if it's people that are Christians and it's all, biblically based, or that worldview, then I was confused why it wasn't embraced by the black church, early on. But, it does seem a lot better now than it was, across the board.
Since you mentioned that, I wanted to ask, actually, you just mentioned that, hip-hop is part of black culture. Those are its roots. And the reason why I asked about the staff at Rapzilla.com is, I saw, I think Philip Rude put out a tweet saying, folks interested in contributing, I guess, should send an email. And the folks he tagged, I think he tagged Justin, Daniel, and the other guy you mentioned, Chad. And I took a look, of course. Steve, yes. And it seems all of you guys are white, and you're covering something that comes out of black culture. So I'm wondering, I don't know, maybe you could talk about the diversity of hip-hop. You mentioned, the white church was more accepting of it. And also maybe the diversity of your staff. Have you thought about that at all when you look around that, hey, wait a minute, maybe we need to actively try and recruit more folks who, I don't know, kind of reflect the black church?
Yeah, well, I'm not necessarily concerned with actively trying to say, okay, we got to have someone black on the team. That's not going to do anything for us, because basically who we want on the team are people that are Christian, that love the Lord, that know the gospel, and people that know hip hop and love hip hop and want to contribute to it. I don't think we need to actively pursue, anyone of any specific color or background. The only thing that I'm concerned with is that they're Christian, they know the gospel, they believe the gospel, and that they know hip hop, and that they want to contribute to it. And so that's what we have. And so that's why, I think that we do good stuff. So I grew up in Northern California, and I didn't grow up around any predominant, race. I grew up, by an Air Force base, on an Air Force base at first. And so there, it was just a complete, mixture of people. people. But the thing that brought us together was music, more so than anything, I think. And, really just when hip hop was blowing up in the 80s, and these, everyone was just wanting to do that and wanting to be that. And so that's what I come from. We did have people that were, that were black, that were on the team that contributed a lot, but they just moved on. So the team, and he contributed one of the first that we've ever worked with. Don't keep in touch. Tyler Burns as well. He did a lot of our live interviews on YouTube, and he contributed a little bit. But basically, just as people, have more responsibilities, then they, seem to move on. So it's not that we haven't had anyone; we just don't currently have anyone that is not white. So, but again, I don't think that's of necessary importance because the door is open for, people that are good at contributing.
Cool, good to know. And I have to ask you, though, I want to touch on this tweet, Philip Rude, who founded Rapzilla. I think it was in 2003, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, he sent out this tweet not too long ago, basically calling out rappers Lecrae and Andy Mineo. Let me pull up the exact tweet so I have them in context. Lecrae, Andy Mineo. He tagged them or at them. I'm saddened that you act like you're better than the rest of us by ignoring the cries from the Christian hip-hop community. Now, of course, I'm not asking you to interpret his tweet because only Philip could actually do that. But I'm sure you were aware of the discussion he started because there are a lot of responses. Do you happen to know what the relationship is in terms of the Christian hip-hop community with, some of the more high-profile artists? Or if you just want to comment on that tweet and conversation that Philip shared.
I think what that is about is that, Lecrae and Andy's approach, has basically changed, and that's all apparent and clear. But I think what Phil was talking about was that basically that, when you're seeing them talk about Christian hip hop on the media, if they ever do, then it's usually talking about it as if it's black, and that they don't want to get boxed in with that. And they started in Christian hip hop. That's why they are where they are. And, it isn't all whack, so it's in the majority of it, and regular hip hop is whack just by the sheer numbers of people that make music today. But it's no different than regular hip hop because most of it is whack, and most of Christian hip hop is whack. But the way that it's talked about is, most of Christian hip hop period is just whack, and I don't want to be tied to that. So, I think that's what he was voicing, but again, you would have to talk to him about that.
Do you see hip hop as something that helps race relations overall, especially with all the racial tensions currently happening in the country? And what do you think about it helping racial tensions? Like, you see Christian hip hop helping with racial tensions inside of the church?
Oh man, that's a big question. I don't necessarily know, because I'm not in all of the churches. But to me, just experiencing hip hop in the church and out of the church, hip hop to me has always brought people together, of different races. And so the church is really not different. The only difference is that we're saved by grace alone, and we happen to be congregating in the church. And so I would say yes, just from that experience, but again, like I'm not the Barna Institute, and I haven't done a bunch of research on it, but from my experience over the last 16 years and just growing up in hip hop, I would say that it does help.
Do you think Christians will think about race? They'll say hey, that's a white rapper, Macklemore's a white rapper, and Iggy Azalea's a white rapper. But in hip hop, in Christian hip hop, it doesn't seem like it's as much of an issue. Like, I've rarely ever heard people call Andy Mineo a white rapper, a white Christian rapper. Do you think it's less of an issue in Christian hip-hop than in secular hip-hop?
I don't think it's an issue. I think it's just a fact that is pointed out on both sides. I think it's still, again, like, we're still the same people we are inside and outside of the church. Most people are. So, you know, how you would say something is the same. And so if you talk about, you know, a rapper that someone may not have heard of probably, and they're white, then that, you know, by majority is usually uncommon. And so you probably would point that out. Or if they're Asian, you would point that out because it's an uncommon thing. And it's something that's descriptive, but not necessarily being used because it's an issue of race or it's a problem.
I'll add something. I think.
Go ahead, Justin.
I think there's more within Christian hip hop. There's more, I would say, prominent white rappers in that field. Like, I think it's a balance. But like, if you look at the mainstream hip hop, you can count the number of white rappers on one hand, and then of those on your hand, maybe there's one or two that are good. Well, while Christian hip hop is a pretty good mix, you have a lot of white guys, you have black guys, you have Hispanic guys, and they all do pretty well. And I would say, I was having this conversation, especially in the mid to early 2000s, and I guess, Chad, you can maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the backing that was going into Christian rap at that point was a lot of white artists because they were on labels, more of the major labels in the Christian realm, like a KJ52 or John Rubin or somebody like Toby Mac and guys like that. And now, finally, you're seeing the success of other people like a Lecrae or even a Triple E, and just people of different cultures and backgrounds are now kind of on this level playing field of Christian hip hop, I think. And I think when it comes down to it, if they're doing Christian hip hop for a message and to get the gospel across, I don't think it matters what color you are or where your background is, because the end goal is the same. So I think maybe in that sense, Christian hip hop has actually figured that point out, that it's about message and what they're saying, rather than how does this guy look or where does he come from. Much like the mainstream, where you have to, have some sort of credential or sort of look the part or represent where you come from.
So you're saying the Christian message kind of negates pointing a finger at a rapper. Say, oh, he's a white rapper, or he's a girl rapper, or she's a girl rapper, or he's an Asian rapper.
Right, I think so. I mean, what do you think? Would you agree with that, Chad?
I don't think so. I think, unless I'm missing the question or the point, like, I just still feel like, because Christians listen to music that's secular and that's Christian, and, we're still just people living lives, and we still watch, movies and TV and whatever else. And so, I think it comes down to, it just comes down to if you like it or not, if it's dope or not. So, that's what I think.
So how come Reach, specifically, I guess, like Lecrae, he's still in that hot zone when it comes to, I guess, the more critical vocal parts of the Christian hip-hop community, the fan base, when they changed their 116 thing. And, he's signed to Columbia Records, so the conspiracy theories start coming out again. If it's just about whether the music is dope, whether they're pushing a message or not, why do those guys still have such a hard time?
Well, that's kind of a spin-off, and that doesn't, support what I was saying. But as far as, it mattering if he's on Columbia or not, Christians can be some of the craziest fans or people, and so all you have to do is look at Rapzilla comments to see that. And so, really, there's a large sect of, Christians, the Christian world, that believes that, you shouldn't have anything to do with anything that is outside of the church, which is ludicrous because, I mean, there are no, major labels that are Christian that stand completely on their own. So it's impossible to do that. And it's impossible to distribute music without being involved, with someone outside of the church. Like, it's just not possible. And so, that's ridiculous. But I think what the fans that are not crazy, that what they're frustrated at is that they came on board and they were a fan of what they were doing because they were doing Christian hip hop. They were, very like theologically heavy in their lyrics and what their whole movement is based on Romans 1:16. And so they kind of appeared to almost change the meaning of 1:16 or unashamed. And then also now their music is drastically different. Not their music, but their lyrics and their approach on how they deliver their message is drastically different. So it appears to those fans that came on board before all that change, which is a majority of their fans, that they're abandoning, everything that they were aligned with in their beliefs, with them as artists. So that's what, the frustration is about.
Justin, you did a piece recently, right? Kind of looking at how, I think it was, Chance the Rapper. He just put out an album and he's being credited, well, the piece I read on NPR anyway, the review of it, he's kind of being credited as making gospel rap cool. And I don't have the piece in front of me, but you can probably talk more in detail about it. But the whole idea, to me, it sounds like it's almost like any of the hip hop artists who happen to be Christian, who are already kind of moving into that space, are totally being ignored in favor of folks like, I don't know, Chance, Kendrick. And that could just be because they were already in that space. So they already had the audience. So now that they're doing these types of tracks, it's just automatically being spoken about in that way.
I mean, there's a lot of layers to this, and that's what I've been trying to unpack slowly the last couple of weeks with various articles. One of the articles I recently did is I actually questioned rappers within the Christian hip-hop community and asked their opinions and their thoughts on guys like Chance and Kanye and these other guys making this, quote-unquote new gospel music. And the results were varied. There's a lot of great responses. Some people are saying, no, these guys can never make gospel music because, they're being used by the devil to trick people. And then we have the other people who are saying it's awesome that they're doing this and, God is really working in their lives and maybe they're moving towards this direction. So I think it's not something that's relatively new because guys like Tupac and even DMX at times have thrown in a little bit of gospel flair. But I think Chance getting so much praise as he is because he was very intentional with going full blown on this sound and even talking about it and saying, yes, this album was made, it was inspired by my faith. He said he would put on Kirk Franklin every morning and blast it in the whole neighborhood at 6 a.m. And that helped him sort of find God again because he said he felt he was losing that. So his new music is inspired by, I guess, him searching for God, but at the same time there's things within his music that is certainly not gospel. The profanity, anything that he says as far as misogyny, and he talks a lot about drugs and things like that. So that's where sort of the message is being distorted a bit.
So, Chad, I don't know, what are your thoughts about that then, in terms of how, I guess, the mainstream press is talking about some of these newer projects, that's supposedly making gospel rap cool or talking about it as if it's new and no one outside of the mainstream had been doing it before?
Well, I mean, anytime you're involved in anything for a long time and then people start talking about it as if it just started happening, your pride will get touched by that. But, like that happens with like Reach. And like I have been around, for example, Syntax Creative was Syntax Records before Syntax Creative. And so we were doing hip hop, that was distributed when all that was hard and when there was really not much of a Christian hip hop market before Reach existed. So people like that obviously could get hurt feelings by hearing all the time that, Reach is something that has never been done before. The same thing with Chance and people that have done what he's doing before. But I think people are talking about it a lot, or they even like it, that aren't Christians, because, we're majority is a Christian nation, is what we are. And so whether you're seriously a Christian or you're culturally a Christian, or you were just raised around it like through your grandmother or whatnot, and you can relate to it, I think everyone can relate to the spiritual things, but also the Christian culture stuff. I think a large part of hip hop and just American culture in general can relate to it. And so when it's kind of like splashed in there with everything else that they're enjoying from hip hop, which is a majority not gospel centered, then they can take it and they like it because it's just a little bit. But if Chance keeps doing it, they're not going to like it. You know what I mean? They're going to be like, all right, dude, like, you're not a gospel artist. I'm not trying to hear gospel music. So, but I mean, I like it because I like something different from being done in hip hop, even if it's not brand new and revolutionary, because generally that's not going to happen because there's nothing new under the sun. But, everybody rapping, sounding the same is getting tiring. So I'm glad that he's coming and doing something different. It's refreshing to me.
I've been writing about secular hip hop for the last couple of months, and what I've noticed is that the Christian world is paying attention to Chance being more gospel per se, but the secular world is more interested in his rollout for his mixtape and how he used the coloring book to promote it and all these different things.
You mean the fan, from the fan perspective, secular fan perspective?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, secular fans versus the Christian fans. So do you think like Christian fans like want secular rappers to make gospel music, and are they willing to compromise like a little cursing, a little of this, a little of that, all these things that sometimes ends up in these songs? Like so let's say for instance like Kanye West. Like my personal belief is Kanye is not a gospel artist, and he's never really even made a real gospel song.
Never at all.
Jesus Walks to me is about political correctness. It's not even really about Jesus, but that's just what I take from him. And the stuff on his new album, he's like, oh, this is a gospel album. I've listened to that album like 3-4 times, and there's nothing gospel about it.
The gospel didn't hit you?
Aside from Kirk Franklin, it wasn't a gospel album, which shows me that clearly his understanding of the gospel is very limited. And I'm not saying he's not a Christian or he doesn't love God, but I really don't know what his situation is. Do you think Christians want, like, I feel like they want their favorite secular artist to become a Christian artist. Do you think that's true? Chad?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. I mean, a lot of people want that just because then they're like, wow, we got this, person that's influential and powerful that is now on our team, but then I think a large portion of people also just are genuinely like, that's awesome. They know the gospel. They know, something that is going to change their life and that is going to change their eternity. So, I don't like making blanket statements when it comes to that kind of stuff because it's an assumption. But I think the answer is yes. It's, yes in both.
And are they willing to compromise, like, as far as some of the content and the lyrics? So that they'll push it out. Like say Chance has this album. I haven't heard the Chance album, so I really can't comment on it. But say Chance has like 3 gospel songs on his album, and then the other 3 songs are like about taking acid or whatever the other stuff he used to rap about. Are Christians gonna just look at the gospel songs, ignore the other stuff, and say this guy's all about the gospel now? Do you see that happening?
No, I mean, I don't. For the majority of people, I don't think that will happen with. But when that happens with me personally, what I do is I really, unless I have a conversation with that person, of course, I'm just making an assumption. But ultimately, what I see is someone, if they're doing that, then they're not in objection with the gospel, wholeheartedly per se. And so with me, I'm like, okay, that person may be on their journey to given their life to Christ, or maybe they have and they're just trying to struggle out of the life that they've been leading. Because I wasn't raised in the church, and so up until 25, I was living that life that Chance lives. And so, with me, like, I know what I was doing, and if I could be delivered out of that, then so can Chance and anyone else. So I just take it as he possibly is taking the road that I took away from the road that he's on. And so, I might just pray for that happening and move on,
Right. I would add that collectively, I think as Christians, we should all sort of do a better job to try to see them out on their journey to faith. I think a lot of times, while these guys, whoever it might be, are searching and showing signs of it, coming to have a real meaningful relationship with God, I think too many people might, condemn them or go after them, in the sense, for just an example, you have like a perfectly 99% gospel song, but that 1%, they say a swear word or something like that. And now, in a lot of people's minds, that whole song, any progress that was made in that song is totally negated, and nothing they said counts in it, no matter how good, because they may have said one thing objectionable on it. And I think we need to give, people a little bit of room to breathe, to sort of find themselves within God, and just pray that they get to that point eventually where there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, because people, they must forget where they come from, you know what I mean? Or they must forget that all their efforts are as of filthy rags, you know what I mean? Because it's like, you didn't one day, get saved, and then you weren't sinning anymore, and you were only speaking the gospel, you know what I mean? Like, you still sin now, you're just saved by the grace of God. And so people need to really check themselves and just step back a little and be like, you know what? I remember where I came from and what my process was like. It was a process. It wasn't, okay, poof, you're completely different now, It's like, let them go through that process.
And even on the other spectrum, for the Christian artist, not even just in hip hop, just Christian music in general, a lot of times these people and pastors and whoever it may be are held on this sort of pedestal of perfection, that everyone's looking towards them for, the wisdom and the counsel, and for them to do things the right way. And, God forbid these guys slip up, then it's like, okay, they have to be excommunicated from the church. We can't listen to their music anymore. We can't listen to their teachings. So I think it falls on both sides of the spectrum, that there needs to be a level of grace, that people understand that at the end of the day, we're all just people. And whether we're looking to find God, or someone who already knows God, but is also being human at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, you have guys like DMX, right? I love DMX. It's like one of my favorite MCs of all time. And he has songs that are like explicitly Christian. And when he has interviews, and not even explicitly, just like spirit-filled songs that he has, that like, I wouldn't even call them Christian music. It's just gospel. It's just real to me. And then, he does interviews, and you hear him preach, and he blows your mind. He prays and he blows your mind. But then he lives a double life. He has the other life he lives, where he's having a million different kids with a million different women, getting caught robbing people, getting caught, doing all kinds of stupid things. And it's hard because I can't say, hey, X is not a Christian because he does A, B, and C. Like you say, we are it is a process, and with every individual, based on their environment, based on their lifestyle and experiences, everybody's life is different. So, like, one person's life may be, all right, I was, I partied a lot in high school, and when I got saved, I stopped partying. To me, somebody like DMX was like, all right, I was robbing people and doing things in the street, and then when I got saved, I started making hip-hop music. So to him, it's like, yeah, he may be like, F this and what these bitches want and all this other stuff, but to him, he's not robbing people. You understand what I'm saying? Like, everybody's experience is different.
I don't know if I understand what you're saying, actually.
So basically, yeah, let me make my point. I'm going to try to make it a little bit more clear. So to one person, being delivered out of something may look one way, and to another person, it may look another way. So to somebody like DMX, he probably doesn't even think it's a big deal that he makes songs that are about robbing people. To him, it's all entertainment, right? And to DMX, it's better than going in the street and robbing people like he used to before he was signed and during his career as well. And he says it in his lyrics, like, I used to have to rob and cheat and do all this stuff, and now I'm selling records. Whereas to somebody else who just like a regular working person, lives a normal life and whatever, to them, their deliverance experience may mean, all right, I used to curse a lot, but now I don't curse a lot. Or I used to, party on a Saturday night, but now I'm in Bible study on a Saturday night. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, DMX, I've always looked at it like he's just like really, really struggling. When you listen to him, I was going to say when you talk to him, but I don't know if any of us has really had a conversation with DMX. But when you hear his interviews and like I've seen his reality show, like he is a spiritual person, and you can tell he has a relationship with the Lord. But probably what they talk about is not normal stuff that we would normally talk about. But it's just like he's kind of really struggling. Because I've heard him say that like God has called him to pastor, so he has his calling on his life. But how he pays the bills kind of goes against that calling, and just the simple fact that he's just struggling. With the alcoholism, the drugs, the baby mamas, like he's just really struggling. The attitude, the temper, I mean, he's like really going to war with it. So I feel like that always, kind of shows the confusing part. Because I used to do stuff like that before I really gave my life to the Lord.
Used to rob people, Keisha?
No.
Oh, okay.
But like even like not at all. But like how he had the prayer. I remember going to a couple of his concerts in college. Like how he had the prayer. And I mean, so I can't remember exactly what he was praying about, but the fact that he called it that it was prayer, and I remember him wanting everybody to respect and reverence that moment as if like somebody was saying a prayer in church. Right. So his actions are just kind of like, as some Christians would say, as the Bible would say, lukewarm. Yeah. It's good enough for some people who hardly ever go to church, and it's not good enough for those people who really never go to church, and people really don't know how to minister or to witness to him. They don't really know what to say, because I've heard him go to Mace, and I'm not saying going to Mace for spiritual counsel is a bad idea. I heard him say that he told Mace, like, yo, Mace, I got this calling on my life. Like, what do I do? And Mace was just telling him, like, yo, do you in the moment. Like, and I was like, well, I was kind of confused. And I was like, so I was thinking, so what do you do now? Like, but, basically just telling him kind of like, don't worry about the calling. And this was when he was really like past the Mace. He was like, do you right now, and, just live in this moment and do you. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe 10 years from now, he might be on the Word Network with TBN. And
that would be dope, actually.
Christians would love him. It'd be like Jesus on, people crying out Hosanna on Palm Sunday. Everybody will love him. But once he messed up,
I know he's got that voice, right? I would love to hear him give a sermon.
Yes.
Have an interview first when it happens.
Did you hear him on Drink Champ?
I heard about it, yeah.
Yeah, he was preaching on that, man. He was really preaching.
Yeah, like he'll go in and then he'll leave and like get in an accident, drunk driving. Like, it's just like
it was really throwing shade at Jay-Z and other rappers. So
yeah, I think it's with him personally. I think he's just like probably, just hooked on being intoxicated. So, like, yeah, he may have gave his life to the Lord at one point, but being intoxicated is, it's an addiction. And so if, you're basically at war with that. So, would I say they're not a Christian? No, I would just say that they're addicted to something, and hopefully the Lord could change them, or, someone will get a chance to minister to them. But yeah, to Vincent's point, like, everyone does have a different starting point, but, ultimately our lives and our walk, we have to bear the fruit of that walk. And you can see that in the things that we're doing day to day. And so I think still it's not okay that, he's doing that at all, because if he is saying he's a Christian, then, we can righteously judge him, but that needs to come in love and in private, not being blasted and ridiculed on Twitter, because, that's not going to change his life. So, we still have that the ability to righteously judge someone that says they're a Christian, but if they're struggling with those things, then either they probably don't know a whole lot about the word, or they were taught a lot of things that aren't necessarily right. And so you just never know. So ultimately, I think we just need to come at them in love and in humility, but with the gospel, and give it to them correct.
Well, hypothetically, right? Your favorite rapper, would they be who they are if they were saved? Would they still make records that were as good as the records that they made as unsaved individuals? Like, think about your favorite, secular artist, whatever it may be. I don't know.
I don't know. It's never happened. Like, Tupac is not saved or alive. I mean, I don't know if he was saved or not, but he's not like living as a Christian, doing music that is overtly Christian, And so, I think the only real example that we have of someone that was in that, at that level, and that is still doing it, and that is overtly Christian, is No Malice, from the Clips. The thing is he's still good, but with me, the thing is that is different is when you're living that life, you're usually making music when you're intoxicated, and you're usually liking that music when you're intoxicated. And so, it's delivered and received in a whole different way. So I can't necessarily hypothetically go down that path, and the only real example we have is the No Malice, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Vinny, as I know you're an artist, so just think about where some of your best songs come from. They're coming from that deep place that, whether it be a tragedy, whether it be the happiest moment of your life. A lot of these guys that make music are let's say on the mainstream, just say Jay-Z, for example, his early albums are about him selling drugs and going through the crime culture that he lived in. Now, if he was a Christian, he would have never even experienced that. So his whole perspective, it's almost like a time machine sort of effect, where you go back in time and you see how the future has impacted something that you change. So I wouldn't think that a lot of these artists wouldn't be around if they were Christians, or at least be relevant in the way that they are now, because their whole story would be different.
He wouldn't be Jay-Z.
Yeah, it wouldn't be Jay-Z.
Well, I mean, it could have been something else, because no one comes out the womb a Christian. So if it wasn't a story about navigating drug culture, then it could have been a story about something else. And it's not so much the lyrics, it's the gifting. Now, a lot of secular rappers they seem way more gifted lyrically and, when they do delivery than some of the, if I can say, the biggest saved rappers. So I feel like there's a nuance there. It's not just the fact that you're a Christian or you have this background. I think it's all of that, including your talents and giftings, which is not just relegated to people who are saved.
I don't agree with that, because I think that the playing field is a little bit more leveled in today's hip hop landscape.
Oh, so what point don't you agree with then?
You said that sometimes Christians, secular artists lyrically are nicer than Christian artists. I feel like if we're talking lyrically, the playing field is a little bit more even now than it was maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point, because I think Christian hip hop, in terms of this lyrical ability and sonically and creating music, is probably at one of the best places that it's been at. And you have a lot of guys who could probably trade bars and go rhyme for rhyme with some of the better ones out there. And a perfect example of that is there are actually Christian battle rappers now, and they have matches and they're respected. And
wait, what are they battling battling against? Just the rapping? Are they like talking against, like bad about each other? How does that work?
Yes.
Because sometimes battle rapping means you get a little dirty and personal, right?
Christian way.
Are they trading verses, Bible verses?
Going after this person's face and how he looks, and like his mama, you can go after his soul, and you can hit him a lot deeper than the outside because you're going for him on the inside. I guess it's weird, but I mean, these guys are able to hold their own and actually win matches and be respected. And I think that just speaks to the level of talent and skill. I mean, in any genre of music, if you're good, you're good. I mean, regardless, you can't say that someone's not talented if they're making great music. So I think, again, it's something also with a lot of layers to it.
So who are some artists that are on the come up or who get overlooked but, are really holding themselves down?
Chad, who do you think?
Well, I don't know if you saw the article that DJ Booth put out today, djbooth.net, but it's on Lecrae, and it's by, I think it's I don't know what his position is, but he's maybe the editor. He's been there for a long time. So basically it's about Lecrae and about how Lecrae, everyone that he knows, and he's connected obviously to a lot of people that are in the hip-hop industry that run the other websites. He's talking about how Lecrae is written off as a gospel rapper or a Christian rapper, but he's saying if you just ignore the Christian part and you just look at his lyrics and his pattern, his flow, that he's one of today's elite rappers right now. And so he's not a Christian. It's not a Christian website, and so he's basically kind of doing a case study on the Christian rapper that is dope enough to be considered one of the elite rappers among all rappers, no matter what their religion is. And so, I think Lecrae would be one of them. And I don't even think Lecrae, like, lyrically is one of the dopest in Christian hip hop, but he is dope. But it's just dope that there's a mainstream hip hop website that is not a Christian website that's using him as a case study. Like, this label is kind of limiting him or limiting any Christian rappers because the people that have heard about him, they heard about him because he came in from the Christian sales, the Christian market. And so he's always labeled as a Christian rapper, and he probably always will be to the mainstream. And so I think he's like the best case right now, the best use case.
Yeah, another guy would be, as far as guys who are sort of on the same playing field, you have someone like NF who could wrap circles around most people, and he sings better than Drake. for a singer. He actually sings very well. So he sings well, he raps phenomenal, and he makes good music, and his thing is, his music isn't overtly Christian, but it's music written from this Christian standpoint, it's kind of evident when you listen to it. And that's why I think he's taken off at such a pace that he has, aside from, I guess, the marketing dollars put behind him. But, I mean, people are recognizing his talent, regardless of him being a Christian or not, because he knows what he's doing. He knows how to make a song.
I think Christian hip-hop nowadays, the area where it's lacking is production. I don't think the producers in Christian hip-hop are anywhere near the producers in secular hip-hop. And how could they be? They just simply don't have the resources. But Christian hip-hop rarely ever invents new sounds, from what I hear at least. Maybe you guys hear different things. Like, in secular hip-hop, you have and love him or hate him, you have Future, right? This guy sounds like something completely different from whatever traditional hip-hop or traditional New York 1990s hip-hop or whatever. He has his totally own sound, right? You have this guy, Designer, comes out, kind of bites off Future, still kind of sounds a little bit like Future, but he's kind of doing his thing, and he's from Brooklyn. Then you have guys like, I don't know, Young Thug and Gucci Mane and all these guys. And lyrically, these guys are not Fetty Wap. Lyrically, these guys are not, they're not good lyricists. They're not really, but that's not what they do. They're basically just like half singing, half rapping, and basically the whole song is pretty much hooks. It's like a bunch of hooks into one song, but the production is there, and the song structure is there. These guys are, especially Future, is like the biggest rapper in the game right now, aside from Drake. I don't think Christian hip hop is always behind when it comes to the sonics. Lyrically, I think it's dope. I think lyrically these guys are beasts on the mic. But why do you think? I don't know. What do you guys think about that point?
Well, they know it. As part of that Chance the Rapper article that I wrote, where I was getting the opinions of Christian hip hop, one of the questions I asked, and in a roundabout way, this will answer it, was, can a non-Christian artist make better Christian art than a Christian can? And some of them said yes, but how they address that would be that these guys have these major producers, these labels, these big marketing dollars. They have the best facilities in the world to actually create the best art in the world, regardless of what they sound like on the mic. Where you have one of the top Christian rappers, maybe take the Reach Records guys out of it, just, the general Christian hip-hop audience, rappers, where they'll never be able to touch anything close to the type of studio where a designer or a Fetty Wap will get to record in, and therefore their sound, is not going to be up to par. The quality is going to be down.
Well, we've been kicking it for over an hour now, and it's holiday weekend. I'm sure you guys want to get out and do some stuff. But any final points or parting thoughts from you, Chad or Justin, before you guys take off?
No.
All right, so thanks again, Chad. Thank you, Justin, for joining us on this episode of Faithfully Podcast, and thank all of you out there for tuning in.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.